You do not freeze first. You starve first. The cold only makes the hunger faster. 45,000 years ago, winter closes around your camp like a trap. The trees stop giving fruit. Roots harden beneath frozen soil. Herds move away. Streams seal under ice, and every breath burns energy your body cannot afford to lose. What do you do when the world offers almost nothing, but your body demands more than ever? Modern winter means walls, heaters, supermarkets, and food arriving from places you never see. Ancient winter meant a shrinking circle of choices. Your firewood became shorter. Your hunting range became longer. The people beside you became thinner. The darkest survival methods did not begin with violence. They began with arithmetic. Every piece of food had to return more energy than it cost to obtain. A rabbit might look like dinner, but chasing it through snow could burn nearly as much energy as its lean body provided. Muscle meat alone was not enough. Your liver can only process so much protein, and without fat or carbohydrates, a diet of very lean meat can become dangerous. The trap is sometimes called protein poisoning. You can eat until your stomach is full and still waste away. So your ancestors searched for the richest substance left in a frozen landscape. Fat carried more than twice the energy per gram of protein. It could keep a fire-fed body alive through long nights, failed hunts, and days of travel. That made the most valuable parts of an animal the parts hidden from sight: marrow inside long bones, grease inside spongy joints, fat around organs, and tissue clinging beneath the skin. What happened after the visible meat was gone? The bones were not thrown away. At Kesem Cave in Israel, Ruth Blasco-Ranbarkai and their colleagues studied cut marks on deer bones dating from roughly 420,000 to 200,000 years ago. Their experiments suggested that ancient humans sometimes kept skin-covered limb bones for weeks before cracking them open. The skin acted like natural packaging. Inside the marrow remained a delayed reserve. Some bones may have been stored for as long as 9 weeks. Picture that choice. A deer falls during a successful hunt. The meat is removed first, but selected legs remain wrapped in their own hide. They are carried back, stacked, watched, and saved. Days later, when fresh food disappears, a stone smashes through the dry shaft. The smell is stronger now. The texture is less pleasant, but the yellow marrow inside is still energy. Would you eat it? At Neumarkt Nord in Germany, a discovery published in 2025 pushed this strategy even further. Lutz Kindler and a large research team examined a lakeside area used by Neanderthals about 125,000 years ago. The remains showed intensive processing of at least 172 large mammals. Bones rich in grease were shattered into small fragments, not simply cracked once for marrow. This was not random destruction. It was organized extraction. Bone grease sits inside the porous ends of bones, where it cannot be scooped out like marrow from a hollow shaft. To reach it, bones must be broken repeatedly. The fragments can then be heated, so the fat separates and rises. The process costs fuel, labor time, and water, which means the reward had to matter. That reward was survival, measured in spoonfuls. You might imagine ancient hunters celebrating huge slabs of roasted meat. Winter reality was less heroic. After the feast came hours of hammering bones. Stone hit bone again and again. Fragments scattered across the ground. Greasy liquid formed in a container hide-lined hollow or another heating setup that left little direct trace. The meal was not a steak. It was rendered residue, and it could decide who woke up the next morning. Fire created another brutal calculation. Wood gave warmth, light protection, and cooked food. But frozen landscapes could make dry fuel difficult to collect. Amanda Henry has argued that Neanderthal use of fire was not always constant. In some places and periods, maintaining it may have been costly enough that it was used only when its benefits exceeded the efforts. A fire could not be treated as decoration. It was another mouth to feed. At several Paleolithic sites, burned animal bones suggest that bones sometimes entered the fuel supply. Fatty bone can burn, especially when combined with wood, although it behaves differently and often produces an unpleasant smoky fire. The same carcass could therefore become food, tools, clothing, and fuel. Nothing useful remained, only one thing. Would you burn tomorrow's marrow to survive tonight's cold? That question had no clean answer. Now reconstruct one winter day. You wake beneath animal hides before sunrise. Frost rims the cave entrance. The fire is low, and no one speaks loudly because every task is already understood. One person protects the embers, another checks the stored bones. Hunters study tracks outside, but fresh snow has erased yesterday's trail. The group has not eaten well for 3 days. A saved leg bone is brought forward. Its surface is dry. A stone hammer breaks it open, exposing marrow with a sour smell. Children receive a share because smaller bodies lose heat quickly. An injured adult receives another because a weak hunter may never return to strength. Then the group makes a decision. The weather is worsening. Remaining fuel could preserve the fire, or it could heat shattered joint bones to release grease. Hunting could bring a reindeer, or it could kill the hunters through exhaustion and exposure. Staying still conserves energy, but waiting consumes stored food. Which risk would you choose? Ancient winter survival was rarely one dramatic act. It was a chain of ugly compromises. Eat food that had aged, crack bones already stripped clean, scrape hides until fingers split, sleep pressed against other bodies, delay movement, abandon a camp, return to an old carcass after wolves had opened it first. Scavenging was not shameful. Shame does not produce calories. A frozen carcass could remain edible longer than one exposed to summer heat, but it also attracted competitors. Hyenas, wolves, lions, and other humans understood the value of stored flesh. Reaching a dead animal could mean confronting teeth, claws, or spears. Sometimes the safest meal was what a predator left behind. Sometimes it included tissues modern diners would reject immediately. Brains, tongues, tendons, organs, skin, stomach contents, and marrow all carried nutrients. A winter carcass had no bad cuts in the modern sense. It had edible parts, useful parts, and parts not yet understood. But one method stands darker than all the others. Cannibalism. At Moula Gersi Cave in France, Albin de Fleur and colleagues examined Neanderthal remains bearing marks similar to those found on butchered animals. Bodies had been disarticulated. Flesh had been removed. Long bones had been broken open. At Goyet Cave in Belgium, Hélène Rougier and her team identified Neanderthal remains dating to roughly 40,500 to 45,500 years ago. Some bones carried cut marks, percussion damage, and evidence of marrow extraction. The processing pattern resembled the treatment of horse and reindeer bones at the same site. A few human bone fragments were even reused as tools for working stone edges. That is the archaeological fact. The motive is not. Researchers cannot say that every cannibalized body was eaten during winter. They cannot prove that starvation caused every event. Cannibalism can arise from hunger, conflict, ritual, punishment, territorial violence, or treatment of the dead. The marks reveal what happened to the body, not what the people felt while doing it. So was cannibalism the ultimate emergency food? James Cole tested that idea by estimating the calories available in a human body and comparing them with large Ice Age animals. His conclusion was disturbing in a different way. A human body provides far fewer calories than a mammoth bison horse or large deer. Hunting humans purely for food would often be a poor return compared with hunting large game. The darkest act may not have been caused by hunger alone. It may have been social. A rival group threatened access to water, shelter, migration routes, or prey. Violence removed competitors. Eating the dead may then have turned victory into a message, a ritual, or simply another use of a body already present. In a winter landscape, territory was food. A cave was warmth. Control of a valley could determine whether children survived until spring. Suddenly, survival is no longer one group against nature. It is one group against another. And that changes the meaning of winter. The most counterintuitive truth is that the harshest survival methods were often signs of planning, not panic. Storing marrow required patience. Rendering bone grease required organized labor. Managing fuel required restraint. Sharing food required memory status obligation and trust. Even cannibalism, where it occurred, was not evidence that ancient humans had lost all humanity. It was evidence that human behavior could become complex, symbolic, violent, practical, or all four at once. The same species capable of caring for injured companions could also butcher enemies. The same hands that protected a child could crack a human bone. Winter did not create monsters. It revealed priorities. Your ancestors survived because they treated the body as a storehouse of energy, and the landscape as a map of future shortages. A successful hunt was not only dinner, it was meat for now, marrow for later, hide for insulation, sinew for binding, bone for tools, and sometimes bone for fire. Survival depended on seeing tomorrow hidden inside today's carcass. Modern life still follows the same ancient logic, only at a distance. A refrigerator delays decay. A freezer turns a successful purchase into future security. Central heating replaces the guarded embryo. Packaged food replaces skin-wrapped bone. Savings accounts convert present effort into protection against a future shortage. The methods change. The fear did not. A storm warning still sends people toward food. An empty shelf still creates anxiety. A power failure still reveals how quickly comfort depends on stored energy. Beneath the light's walls and plastic packaging, your brain still asks the oldest winter question: will there be enough? Ancient humans answered with methods that could look revolting, ruthless, or unthinkable today. They ate parts you discard. They returned to carcasses you would avoid. They smashed bones into fragments for traces of fat. They burned what could not be eaten. And sometimes, under motives that remain uncertain, they processed human bodies like animals. But the real darkness was not inside the cave. It was outside, cold without shelter, hunger without storage, distance without transport, injury without medicine. One failed hunt becoming another, until every moral choice arrived attached to an empty stomach. You do not freeze first, you starve first, and survival begins when nothing is allowed to go to waste.